Well, good Monday morning. I hope you're doing well and had a great weekend, and hope you were able to bowl with us on Saturday afternoon. But good to see you this morning and go into a topic we were in yesterday that really is not a topic we think a lot about within the church, especially in the American church and the Western church. We've been established for so long, and in many ways, we're obviously part of American culture and Western culture. That, for the most part, there's been good relationships between the church and culture. Now, that's starting to change in some ways, and there's always been rubs. But for the most part, in your context and my context, it, it's been okay. Jesus is very clear, and the Apostle Paul, that the copacetic relationship between the church and the world is not the norm, probably, especially in the first century, but as the world changes and drifts away from the Father. And so that topic yesterday that we talked about and said, hey, follow Jesus and the world's going to hate you. You know, when you first heard that yesterday, if you were able to be with us, you might have been like, whoa. So let's work through that a little bit. Just want to pull a little bit out. But if nothing else, it reminds us of how contradictory our faith is to the world. The world and the Christian faith don't belong in the same sentence to a point, and that's not to diss anybody, but it's to remind us of the cultural differences, the character and value differences that truly exist in a world society, a secular society, and then a Christ-like society. That, I won't say never the twain shall meet, but yeah, pretty much never the twain shall meet. They won't match up. That doesn't mean they can't coexist at times. So Jesus worked through that and talked about that. We processed that yesterday of how the world hates him, therefore it hates us, and what are some things we can do to work through that. And I want to share, go back. Our main focus was John chapter 15, verses 18 through chapter 16, verse 4. So that was our sweet spot, if you will. But I want to go back to a verse from the Apostle Paul. This is in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 12, and read what he said, and then remind us of 5 things that we can do or be about to help us focus as the world pushes back, and we struggle just to think about some things. Verse 12 of 2 Timothy 3, Paul said, indeed, all who want to live in a godly way in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. All who want to live in a godly way in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. If you want to live like Christ in a godly way, if you want to live as Jesus is, you're going to be persecuted. Paul, writing in the first century and writing here to Timothy, his disciple, if you will, his pupil, he's reminding him we do not live in a Christian's favorable world. In that time, they did not at all. And so he's saying, hey, if you're going to live for Jesus, people are going to notice it and they're not going to like it. So let's just remind ourselves, what are some things we can do to prepare ourselves when and if we ever are in that environment? And you know, a question, and this, I don't like asking this question of me, and you probably don't of you, is, am I not living my life right if I'm not opposed? Just something to think about. But a couple things to prepare ourselves. Number one, don't always be offended. This especially came true in the Olympics when, if you'll remember a couple of weeks ago, the opening ceremony, there was a lot of posturing, a lot of offense taken at what appeared to be the Last Supper, and there's been all kind of conundrums over that, kerfuffle, if you will. But a lot of people got offended. Okay, understandably why. But I thought it was interesting. Some people say, hey, Christians, maybe we get offended a little too quick. I think that's interesting. I'm not saying that we should give carte blanche to the world, but, you know, I don't see Jesus getting offended a lot. People didn't want to receive him. He's like, okay, move along. So be careful in being offended. Make sure you're offended for the right reasons, if you will. Choose not to stop living for Christ. Paul said if you're going to live in a godly way. So live in a godly way. Now that's going to bring the heat maybe, but choose to live in a godly way. Another is pick your battles. Some of us just feel like we got to fight all the time. We're always game on, here we go, you know. I was going to say, well, I appreciate that. I don't know that I do. Um, we need to pick our battles. You know, there are some battles we as believers should have with the world. There are issues into which we should lean. But everything's not a battle. And kind of like the offense angle, if I'm always fighting a battle, always offending, after a while, the world and even fellow believers are going like, can we ever please you? Can you ever just kind of live your life for Christ and be okay? So be careful with picking your battles. Love people. This is where it gets to the, you know, really to the strong part, the tough part, but love people. You know, Jesus talked in Paul's letters, or Paul wrote on behalf of him, be careful offending your brothers and sisters in Christ, people for whom Christ died. We need to love people because Jesus died for them just like he died for us. And so we need to love the world and whatever that looks like and how that plays out. And then finally, as we do all these things, as Paul said, we need to expect persecution. You know, if we're bold for Christ in our families and our friend groups, in our world, at the office, and by the way, I'm not saying stand up on your desk and have a Bible in your hand. It's, you know, you could be strong just by saying, I'm not going to do that because it goes against Christ. You stand up for your morals. You stand up for truth. And you do it in as loving of a way you can. You do need to expect persecution. Now, historically, we don't know what's going on. Sometimes we get a sense that our world is turning very secular. From this, in that sense, by saying turning secular, it's turning more and more away from truth and from the gospel and from godly things, and to really humanism and about man, and man can make all of his own decisions, and almost man is God. So, as we tend to, the West turn that way, Western Europe already has, and here we go, we tend to follow them, unfortunately. It's going to make it even more and more difficult. But that's what we're called to. We're called to live in that difficult circumstance. So I want to just encourage you today. Probably your life for Christ isn't overly difficult. Mine's not. Is that my fault? God's fault? Nobody's fault? I don't know. But I need to be willing to lean into the truths of Christ enough to make others uncomfortable sometimes, and me too. And so I just want to challenge you to do that. Also, be mindful of our world. And it might get hard. And will you get ready for hard? Things to think about. I love you. I'm here to walk with you. Let me know how I can in any way. And working through that. Be mindful that next Monday, Relate Well Date Night. If you can, it's going to be a great event here. Go to the Chick-fil-A Tinseltown website and sign up for you and your significant other, and let's have a great time learning about relationships together. So I love you, buddy. Have a great day. Bye-bye.